Chosen one, somebody's house of cards just collapsed and they're scrambling like roaches when the lights come on right now. As spiritual warfare intensifies across the planet, there's a manipulator in your orbit who's been running the most elaborate con game you've ever witnessed, and their time is up. The masks are falling, the lies are unraveling, and what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how close you came to being spiritually assassinated by someone who smiled in your face while sharpening knives behind your back. They rehearsed every smile, choreographed every apology, calculated every tear, not because they cared about you, but because they feared the moment your eyes would open. They mistook your grace for naivety, your compassion for weakness, your patience for blindness. And now their entire survival depends on whether they can still convince people to keep their secrets sealed. You can almost hear their panic in the late-night calls, the urgent texts, the shaky voices begging for silence. Their network is trembling, their alliances fracturing, their strategies dissolving like paper in the rain. And while they plead for concealment, the truth grows louder, marching toward exposure with unstoppable force. But here's the twist that's about to flip your entire understanding upside down. You weren't just their victim. You were their primary target in a coordinated spiritual attack designed to steal your power, corrupt your purpose, and turn your own gifts against you. Psychological warfare. Now the story begins to open wider, because that secret they're trying to bury is not just embarrassing. It is catastrophic to their illusion of control. Their pleas for silence reveal more than any confession ever could, because the guilty always speak loudest when the walls close in. Picture them pacing their rooms at night, replaying every conversation with you, wondering which moment gave them away, which inconsistency slipped through the cracks. They are sweating under the weight of their own lies, and the clock is ticking louder with each attempt to rewrite the narrative. Every call they make to contain the truth leaks more desperation. Every promise they whisper exposes another layer of fraud. They are exhausting themselves trying to cork a dam that has already burst, and the water is rushing through the cracks with a force they cannot stop. This is the atmosphere you now stand in desperation on their end, calm rising within you. You no longer need to chase clarity because clarity is chasing you. You no longer need to force truth because truth is forcing its way into the open. Their collapse is your confirmation. Their begging is your vindication. Their unraveling is the sign that your discernment was never wrong, even when they tried to convince you that your instincts were flawed. And now the light of exposure is burning through every shadow they once hid in, revealing just how much they underestimated the strength of your spirit. Remember this: every manipulator eventually arrives at the moment when their own web becomes their prison. The same net they cast to entangle you has wrapped around their ankles, and no amount of denial will untie it. You were meant to witness this collapse so that you never again question the authority rising inside you. Their panic is the prophecy fulfilled, and your stillness is the victory no one can erase. And as their web tightens around themselves, your eyes begin adjusting to the patterns you once overlooked, and suddenly you recognize that the manipulator was never acting alone. Every whisper you heard, every probing question disguised as concern, every innocent conversation that left you uneasy was part of a coordinated network operating in the shadows. They recruited watchers, not warriors, people willing to trade their integrity for gossip, flying monkeys who thought they were just passing information, when in reality they were feeding an operation built on your disempowerment. It explains why some friends suddenly appeared where you least expected them, why family members began asking questions that felt rehearsed, why acquaintances seemed strangely aware of details you never shared publicly. You were living inside a theater of surveillance, a drama stage to keep you doubting yourself. The brilliance of their scheme was not sophistication, but persistence. They knew if enough voices echoed the same doubts, you might begin to wonder if they were true. They planted seeds through casual comments, rehearsed curiosity, and manufactured coincidences, each designed to shape your perception of reality. Yet what they failed to calculate was the resilience of your discernment. They underestimated how your spirit stores patterns, how your intuition catalogs every inconsistency. And now, as exposure lights up the cracks in their circle, You begin to see the scripts they handed out, the roles assigned, the lines repeated. Some acted as informants, some as distractors, some as comforters who would extract your secrets under the guise of compassion. Each one convinced they were serving their own interest, but in truth, they were pawns in a larger play. Think about how meticulously they placed people near you, how they studied where you went for peace, who you trusted, and what you confided when you felt safe. They positioned their watchers like chess pieces, ready to report back on your mood, your projects, your relationships. Every detail became a data point in the liar's strategy to keep control. But chosen one, surveillance may record movements, yet it cannot capture destiny. They could monitor your footsteps, but they could not alter the divine coordinates written over your life. And while they thought they were mapping your patterns, what they actually exposed was their dependence on you. Because without constant updates, without constant spying, their scheme collapses into silence. Now look closely at how quickly these watchers scatter once truth begins to emerge. The same people who once carried messages now avoid eye contact. The same mouths that once whispered doubts now stutter in confusion. They realize they were not allies of power but accessories to deception, and the weight of guilt makes them retreat. You don't need revenge because exposure itself turns their loyalty into liability. They fear being linked to the manipulator's implosion, so they back away, leaving gaps in the network wide enough for the light to shine through. And in that light, you stand taller. Not as a victim of surveillance, but as a revelation of what cannot be contained by schemes and spies. Their network of watchers becomes proof of how valuable your spirit always was. Who builds an army to monitor someone insignificant? Who invests this much energy in keeping tabs on a soul with no power? The very scale of their operation testifies to the magnitude of your calling. Remember this, they watched you because they feared what would happen the moment you move freely, and that moment is now. And as the watchers scatter and the silence grows louder, you begin to see the deeper layer that made their influence so sticky. The unseen cord that tethered your emotions, even when your logic screamed for release. This was not an ordinary attachment. It was a false spiritual cord, an artificial bond designed to mimic connection while siphoning your strength. It's why you felt drawn back into their orbit after every betrayal. Why you questioned your sanity when your heart longed for someone your spirit knew was poison. This cord was woven through whispers in your dreams, through sudden waves of longing that came out of nowhere, through emotional hooks that pulled on your compassion until you confused pity with love. They studied your patterns, recognized your gift for deep empathy, and twisted it into a chain that kept you from walking away. Every time you showed mercy, they tightened the knot. Every time you forgave, they reinforced the illusion. They weren't just playing with psychology, they were dabbling with energies that most people ignore. Energies that blur boundaries and manipulate emotions. This is why leaving them felt like tearing off a piece of yourself. Even when you knew they were draining you, it's why your thoughts circled endlessly, replaying conversations, justifying contradictions, explaining away the inexcusable. They planted hooks in your spiritual circuitry and pulled until you mistook their chaos for destiny. But chosen one, cords not woven by love cannot withstand the fire of truth. When the exposure came, when the light began to shine, the false bond started to fray. You noticed the tug wasn't destiny, it was dependency. You realized the longing wasn't love, it was programming. And in that realization, the cord began to dissolve. You started to see how every obsessive thought, every unexplained attraction, every sudden flood of guilt was not your own emotion, but interference designed to keep you bound. The counterfeit tie pretended to be soul deep, but it could not withstand the authority of your awakening. Think of how many times you almost broke free, how many times you felt the urge to leave but were pulled back by an invisible chain. That was the cord at work, convincing you that life apart from them would be emptiness. Yet now, with your discernment sharpened, you can trace the moments when the pull felt strongest, and you can see the timing was strategic always when you were close to breakthrough, always when new opportunities appeared, always when your spirit was about to rise higher. That is no accident. That is interference. And here is the liberating truth: once you recognize a false chord, it loses power. Awareness cuts strands more effectively than anger ever could. The moment you saw the pattern, the bond began unraveling. The moment you named the interference, the energy shifted. Now you no longer mistake longing for love or guilt for obligation. Now you see clearly that what you felt was never a covenant, but a counterfeit. And chosen one, you were never bound to them. They were bound to you. And that bond has now snapped under the weight of your clarity. Understand this: real chords are born from purpose, mutual growth, and sacred alignment. False chords are forged in fear, control, and dependency. One nourishes your soul, the other drains it dry. You are now severing what was never meant to last, and every strand that falls away reveals more of your true authority. This is not just release, it is rebirth. And once the false cord breaks, your vision sharpens, and you begin to notice what had always been hiding in plain sight: the cracks in their performance. The mask they wore with such confidence now slips under pressure, and every detail that once seemed small now shouts volumes. Their stories no longer line up. Their timelines contradict themselves. Their explanations grow thinner each time they are questioned. You remember moments that felt strange, shrugs that dodged accountability, sudden mood swings that didn't match the situation. Those were not quirks, chosen one. Those were glimpses of the truth leaking out, warning signs that your spirit caught even when your mind was confused. Exposure rarely happens all at once. It happens in fragments, like puzzle pieces scattered on the floor. At first, you saw only scattered hints, but under pressure, the fragments link together until the picture becomes undeniable. They thought they could keep improvising, that charisma could cover inconsistencies, but no performance can survive the weight of truth. When pressure rises, authenticity strengthens, but falsehood crumbles. And crumble is exactly what you are now witnessing: a slow-motion collapse of a persona that never had roots in reality. Notice how their tone changes when questioned. Watch how they over-explain simple things yet remain silent about the details that matter most. Pay attention to how their allies struggle to repeat the same script. Each version slightly different, each retelling revealing new cracks. These inconsistencies are not accidents. They are the inevitable outcome of deception stretched too far. The manipulator who once seemed flawless is now frantic, grasping at straws, layering lie upon lie until the contradictions expose themselves. You also see how their body betrays them. The darting eyes, the nervous laughter, the agitation at innocent questions, all signals of a mask too heavy to hold. You once overlooked these details, excusing them as stress or eccentricity. Now you realize they were signals of an internal war, evidence of a truth too heavy for their fabricated self to carry. The pressure has made their disguise transparent, and you no longer need to search for proof. The proof reveals itself in their inability to stay consistent. But chosen one, the slipping mask is not just about them, it is about you. Each contradiction you notice strengthens your discernment. Each inconsistency you detect sharpens your awareness. Every fragment that doesn't fit reinforces the authority of your perception. The mask slipping under pressure becomes your confirmation that what your spirit felt all along was accurate. And the beauty of this process is that you do not have to force it. Truth has its own gravity, pulling lies apart piece by piece until the whole facade collapses. What was once hidden in shadows is now displayed under the bright light of your awakening. The manipulator can beg, plead, or perform, but the performance is collapsing under its own contradictions. Their mask cannot withstand the weight of justice. Their mask cannot endure the authority of your clarity. And so, with every slip, with every crack, you grow stronger, steadier, more certain. This is the divine exchange. While their illusion falls apart, your authority rises unshakable. Understand this: no matter how carefully crafted, every mask eventually becomes too heavy to hold when the fire of exposure burns hot enough. What slips in private soon spills in public. What they concealed in whispers erupts in conversations they cannot control. And you, chosen one, are not watching their performance, you are witnessing its ending. The final act where illusions die and truth takes the stage without apology. And as the mask slips further, another layer of their scheme becomes clear: the way they built traps, not only in your emotions, but in your livelihood and your name. This was never just about controlling conversations. It was about tightening the noose around your resources, your opportunities, and the way people perceived you. They knew that a chosen one with independence is dangerous to manipulation. So they set about undermining both your economic foundation and your reputation. Subtle at first, like whispers in the ears of colleagues, gentle suggestions that planted doubt about your reliability. Then bolder, with stories twisted just enough to sound believable. Stories that made others question your character while leaving you scrambling to defend yourself. Think back to the opportunities that mysteriously fell through, the projects that seemed promising until suddenly they were blocked, the invitations that stopped coming without explanation. Behind those closed doors, narratives were being spun, half-truths packaged as concern, exaggerations presented as warnings. You were being sabotaged not with open attacks but with careful erosion, so that every step forward felt like walking on sand that shifted beneath your feet. And when financial strain or professional doubt crept in, who was always nearby with a word of comfort? The same manipulator engineering the collapse, positioning themselves as both the cause of the wound and the source of the bandage. But chosen one, reputations built on lies cannot stand against the architecture of truth. For every whisper they spread, there exists a paper trail of their intent. For every opportunity they derailed, there is evidence of the fingerprints they left behind. And for every time they tried to destabilize your foundation, you developed resilience that no amount of sabotage can erase. The trap they set for you became training for discernment. The very struggles they caused forged skills that no one can take away. Financial droughts taught you resourcefulness. Professional betrayals sharpened your intuition about who deserves access. And reputation attacks clarified who truly knows your character and who only repeats gossip. The economic sabotage was never just about money, it was about energy. They wanted you exhausted, distracted, fighting battles on every front. If they could drain your focus with financial strain, you would have less clarity to see their manipulation. If they could stain your reputation, you would question your worth and hesitate to step fully into your calling. But now, the reversal is clear. Every lie spoken is boomeranging back as exposure. Every network they corrupted is fracturing under the weight of their dishonesty, and the same people they convinced to doubt you are now seeing through the fog, realizing the deception they were enlisted into. This is the justice of divine order. What was meant to confine you has expanded you. What was meant to silence you has amplified you. The trap of sabotage has become the evidence of your resilience. And now, when your name is spoken, it is not as a victim of defamation, but as a survivor of it. One whose integrity remained intact even under attack. That integrity is now your currency, chosen one, and it is worth more than anything they ever tried to steal. Remember, chosen one, money can be lost and regained. Reputations can be stained and restored. But character refined under fire cannot be destroyed. Their attempt to bankrupt your influence only revealed the inexhaustible wealth within you, creativity, resilience, and divine favor that cannot be purchased or stolen. In trying to bury your name, they ended up engraving it deeper in the memory of those who matter most. And just when they believed the erosion of your resources and the staining of your reputation would keep you bound, the most unstoppable force arrives: exposure. The dam they worked tirelessly to maintain, the fragile wall built from secrets, manipulation, and whispered agreements, suddenly bursts under the weight of truth. It never collapses slowly. It shatters in one decisive moment, sending a flood through every corner of their carefully constructed world. What they begged others to hide now roars into the open, undeniable, uncontrollable, unstoppable. And chosen one, you are not the one pushing it, is truth itself, gathering momentum until no hand can hold it back. Imagine the panic in their circle as screenshots circulate. as messages once kept in private are suddenly shared among people who compare notes and realize they were each told different versions of the same story. Picture the frantic phone calls at midnight, the attempts to silence witnesses with bribes, the tears of desperation when lies they spun years ago come back in perfect clarity. The dam doesn't leak, it bursts, and when it does, everyone who helped build it is swept into the current. Allies turn skeptical, enablers retreat, and the manipulator finds themselves exposed not just to you, but to the very people they depended on to shield their facade. The flood of exposure is merciless in its precision. Details align too perfectly for coincidence. Patterns emerge that make deception undeniable. Evidence shows up from unexpected places, documents, conversations, testimonies, all converging to prove what your spirit knew long before your mind had language for it. Their house of cards collapses with sound and fury, not because you fought to bring it down, but because truth carries a force of its own, stronger than any defense built on manipulation. And here is where divine irony reveals itself. The same strategies they used against you become the very evidence that convicts them. They documented their own schemes in arrogance, bragged to confidants, recorded their victories against your peace, never realizing that those records would one day serve as proof of their guilt. Every whisper, every note, every digital trace becomes a testimony. In trying to showcase their power, they preserve the evidence of their powerlessness. Look at the flood for what it is: liberation. The exposure is not to humiliate you, but to vindicate you. The lies that weighed down your reputation now dissolve in the current, and your name rises above the debris untarnished. People who once doubted you now come forward with apologies, confessing they were deceived. Others admit they ignored their own instincts, swept along by the manipulator's performance. The dam bursting reveals not only their falsehood, but your resilience, your steadfastness, your refusal to surrender even when the odds seemed impossible. Chosen one, the dam burst is your turning point. The water rushing out is not chaos, it is cleansing. The exposure may feel overwhelming in its scale, but it washes away the residue of every scheme designed against you. And when the water recedes, what remains is a landscape cleared of lies, a ground ready for rebuilding, and a reputation stronger because it was tested by flood. The dam has burst, the flood has come, and you stand not drowned, but delivered. Understand this: when truth decides to move, it does not trickle politely, it roars like a river claiming its course. No lie can outlast that current. No secret can withstand that pressure. And while they scramble to plug holes with excuses and half apologies, the flood keeps rising, unstoppable, undeniable, ordained. This is not your battle to fight, it is your victory to witness. And when the flood of exposure finally settles, what remains is the undeniable weight of consequences pressing down on every corner of their life. For years, they moved recklessly, believing they could outrun accountability, convinced that clever lies and strategic alliances would shield them from fallout. But chosen one, there is a law written into the fabric of existence. Every action carries a return. Every seed sown produces a harvest. Every scheme carries its own invoice. And now the invoice has arrived with interest. What they thought was forgotten has been remembered by justice. What they believed was hidden has been summoned into the open by truth. Watch how their world begins to fracture under this pressure. Legal consequences stir, whether through documents, contracts, or financial records that suddenly surface. Relational consequences bloom as the very people they use begin to turn away in disgust. Spiritual consequences erupt because you cannot tamper with sacred energy and expect to walk away untouched. They feel the weight not in one area but in all directions at once. Phone calls unanswered. Doors once open now slam shut. The credibility they depended on erodes in real time, leaving them gasping for relief that never comes. And here is the deeper irony: the same traps they set for you have become the holes they now fall into. The stories they spun about you are now spoken about them. The accusations they whispered return like echoes, except now the echo is amplified by evidence. The financial sabotage they orchestrated leaves trails that circle back to them. drawing eyes of authority. The spiritual manipulations they indulged in invite forces they cannot control. The weight of consequences is not abstract. It is felt in sleepless nights, in health unraveling, in allies walking away, in opportunities vanishing like mist. Chosen one. Notice how none of this required you to seek revenge. You didn't have to prove anything, expose anything, or force anything. You simply stood, endured, and allowed truth to reveal itself. The consequences belonged to them, not you. Your only role was to survive, to rise, and to watch the divine scales balance what once seemed unfair. This is the beauty of spiritual law. It operates whether people believe in it or not. Gravity does not need belief to pull, and justice does not need permission to act. The weight of consequences also clarifies your vision. You see that no one escapes accountability forever. You recognize that what looked like delay was actually divine timing. You understand that when exposure comes, it always brings the companion of recompense. The manipulator is now learning in full what they refuse to accept in seed form, that every action returns multiplied. And you, chosen one, are now free to watch, not in bitterness, but in clarity, knowing that what they carry is not your burden. It is the harvest of their own hands. Understand this: consequences are not punishment. They are mirrors. They reveal character. They expose choices. They deliver the reality someone tried to conceal. And as those mirrors surround the manipulator, they cannot escape the reflection of what they have become. Every door closed is a reflection. Every friend lost is a reflection. Every whisper that now turns against them is a reflection. The weight they feel is the echo of every action they set in motion, and no disguise, no mask, no plea for silence can protect them from themselves. This is the justice of destiny, inescapable, undeniable, unstoppable. And as the weight of consequences bears down on them, the most devastating shift is not what the world did to them, but what you chose to stop doing. You withdrew your light. For so long, your presence covered them. Your compassion made them appear more noble than they were. Your forgiveness painted them as redeemable, when in truth they had no desire to change. They were parasites disguised as partners, siphoning your radiance to cloak their own emptiness. Every compliment they received carried traces of your influence. Every opportunity they touched was blessed by your association. They did not shine, they reflected you. The moment you pulled back, the illusion collapsed. Suddenly their charisma felt hollow. Their words rang empty. Their gestures seemed rehearsed, without your energy amplifying their image. People began to notice the cracks they once ignored. The gatherings they used to dominate now feel awkward. Conversations they controlled now stumble. Relationships they manipulated now crumble. Your absence became their exposure, and it happened without you lifting a hand. Simply by refusing to pour light into darkness, you revealed what was always there, an empty shell pretending to be whole. Chosen one, understand the magnitude of this power. Darkness cannot survive without borrowed light. Manipulators cannot thrive without someone to validate them. When you stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped rescuing, you cut off their lifeline. They tried to replicate your energy through new alliances, but the imitation fell flat. They tried to copy your language, your insights, your essence, but without the source they sounded shallow, transparent, desperate. What they called strength was always your covering. What they called wisdom was always your echo. What they called influence was always your reflection. Notice how quickly the tide turned when you withdrew. People who once applauded them now question their motives. Those who once protected them now step back. The silence you offered by disengaging became louder than any accusation. And while they scramble to prove they still hold power, every attempt exposes more weakness. Their mask disintegrates faster without your light to hold it together. Their networks scatter without your energy to attract them. Their voice shakes without your calm to steady it. The beauty of this moment is that your withdrawal was not vengeance. It was wisdom. You did not need to curse them, confront them, or campaign against them. You simply return to yourself, reclaiming the light that was always yours. And in doing so, you transform from target to testimony. The very act of withholding what they misused became the proof that you were never dependent on them. They were dependent on you. Their collapse was inevitable once your energy was no longer available to feed their image. Chosen one, this is your reminder that your presence is not casual, your compassion is not ordinary, your light is not replaceable. When you withdraw it from manipulation, you do not shrink, you expand. You discover that the same light they exploited now shields you, empowers you, elevates you. And as you walk forward in clarity, they remain stuck in the shadows of their own making, desperately searching for the glow that left with you, a glow they can never counterfeit again. Understand this: the greatest judgment on deception is not thunder from the sky, but silence from the chosen one. Your withdrawal is the verdict. Your stillness is the sentence. And every room they enter without you becomes the courtroom where their emptiness testifies against them. You did not lose by stepping back. You revealed who was truly carrying the light all along. And when the silence of your withdrawal exposes their emptiness, something extraordinary rises within you, the authority you inherit. For so long you lived as if your gifts were fragile, doubting your instincts, second-guessing your discernment. They trained you to think your compassion was weakness, your forgiveness was naivety, your patience was blindness. But the very qualities they tried to weaponize against you have now become the foundation of your authority. What was once mocked is now revealed as wisdom. What was once exploited is now recognized as strength. What was once dismissed is now crowned with legitimacy. Authority does not arrive with fanfare, it emerges through fire. Every battle you endured, every betrayal you survived, every lie you overcame deposited weight into your spirit. That weight is not heaviness, it is substance, credibility, spiritual gravity. People sense it when you enter a room, though they cannot explain it. The manipulator feared this moment because they knew once you stopped doubting yourself, you would carry a presence they could not imitate. They feared the moment you would embody peace in chaos, clarity in confusion, stillness in storms. That moment has arrived. Chosen one. Notice how your words now cut through noise. Notice how your silence now carries power. Notice how your very existence becomes proof of what heaven can do with a person who refuses to break under pressure. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. You no longer chase validation because authority validates itself. You no longer explain your worth because your presence demonstrates it. You no longer fear isolation because authority walks comfortably alone until the right company arrives. And the beauty of this inheritance is that it multiplies. The same intuition they tried to corrupt is now sharper, capable of detecting deception before it forms. The same compassion they exploited is now balanced by boundaries that protect your peace. The same forgiveness they abused is now directed by wisdom that refuses to excuse repeated harm. You are not harder, you are clearer. You are not colder, you are wiser. You are not diminished, you are refined. Understand this: authority is not about control over others. It is about mastery over yourself. When you refuse to be manipulated, when you refuse to compromise your peace, when you refuse to hand over your discernment, you become unshakable. And that steadiness terrifies those who once thrived on your instability. They know they can no longer bait you, no longer provoke you, no longer feed on your reactions. Your restraint is their defeat. Your boundaries are their downfall. Your wisdom is their undoing. Now you walk with a weight that is undeniable. You no longer beg for seats at tables, you build your own. You no longer apologize for your discernment, you lead with it. You no longer hide your light, you let it blaze. And while they scramble to recover what exposure has destroyed, you ascend into the fullness of your calling. The authority you inherit is not temporary, not fragile, not conditional. It is sealed by every battle you endured, signed by every tear you shed, and stamped by every victory you did not even realize you had already won. This is the moment where you stop waiting for permission. You stop shrinking to fit old versions of yourself. You stop apologizing for the magnitude of your presence. Authority is not given by people, it is recognized by them. And when they finally acknowledge it, they will realize it was never theirs to grant. It was always yours to carry. That realization is the true victory, you walking freely in what was always ordained. And with authority now resting firmly on your shoulders, the story does not end in survival. It births the unbreakable you. The manipulator thought they were writing your downfall, but what they really authored was your origin story. You no longer live as someone merely enduring trials, you live as someone transformed by them. Every scar has become a seal. Every tear has become oil. Every battle has become training. You stand as proof that what was designed to destroy you became the very process that defined you. Chosen one, feel the shift in your identity. You are no longer the one who bends endlessly to please others. You are no longer the one who doubts every instinct or questions every perception. You are the one who learned to trust your discernment even when it made you stand alone. You are the one who discovered peace is not passive, it is weaponized stillness. You are the one who knows love is not weakness, it is fire strong enough to burn through deception. You are the one who embodies truth, not in theory, but in practice, carrying the evidence of survival in your very presence. This unbreakable version of you is not harder in bitterness, but stronger in clarity. You are not defined by betrayal, but refined by it. The people who once underestimated you now see what they cannot unsee, that your resilience is beyond human explanation. They tried to calculate your breaking point and instead discovered there was none. They tried to fracture your identity and instead revealed its foundation was eternal. They tried to bury you in lies and instead planted the seed of your awakening. Now you rise with a code of living they cannot imitate. Your boundaries are clear. Your peace is sacred. Your purpose is undeniable. You no longer apologize for existing at full brightness. No longer dim your light to soothe fragile egos. No longer compromise your standards to earn counterfeit approval. You carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows destiny has stamped their life with significance, and no opposition can erase it. And this is the true victory, not that the manipulator fell, but that you rose. Not that their secrets spilled, but that your spirit expanded. Not that their schemes collapsed, but that your calling solidified. The unbreakable you is the final testimony, the living evidence that light does not just survive darkness, it transforms through it. This is the new chapter. Chosen one, not survival, not repair, birth. The birth of the unbreakable you. Understand this, unbreakable does not mean untouched, it means unshaken. You still carry memories, but they no longer define you. You still remember pain, but it no longer limits you. The difference is that everything once used to weaken you has now become part of your arsenal. Discernment as shield, compassion as strategy, silence as authority, boundaries as fortress. What was once fragmented has become whole, and what is whole cannot be broken. Chosen one,